In the previous lecture we were discussing about the Cauchy's theorem, which gives us a framework of representing the traction force on any arbitrarily oriented surface in terms of the stress tensor components. So, we will write the corresponding expression, which is already written here, T with subscript I is the direction of action of the force, and superscript eta, which is the direction normal of the surface, arbitrarily oriented surface, in terms of summation of tau j I eta j. So, we will be writing that now in a matrix form. So, we can write the components. So, the first component you see T1 is equal to tau 1 1 eta 1 plus tau 2 1 eta 2 plus tau 3 1 eta 3. So, the first row of this multiplied with this column vector. Similarly, T2, the first row, the second row of this times the column vector, and T3 is the third row of this times the column vector. So, you can also represent the stress tensor components in the form of a matrix. This is another way of representing it. So, here you can see that this is a second order tensor we have already discussed, and we have discussed the second order tensor maps a vector onto a vector, and that you can see from here. This is a vector, this is mapped onto another vector by means of this second order tensor. So, if this is the case, then we say that the tensor is a second order tensor. It is capable of mapping a vector onto another vector. Okay. Now, the question is, how many components are here? Total 3 plus 3 plus 3, total 9 components. But out of these total 9 components, all are not independent. And how they are dependent or how they are independent, we have to figure out, and we have to figure out from a consideration which is conservation of angular momentum. So, still now we have used conservation of linear momentum, we have partially done it, we have not yet written the final form of the equation, but we have never used the angular momentum conservation. So, that we will do in a moment. So, just like linear momentum relates to translation, angular momentum relates to rotation. So, we will consider a simple example when we consider rotation in the xy plane, that is rotation with respect to the z axis. So, let us say that delta x1 is the dimension along x1 and delta x2 is the dimension along x2 of a fluid element. We have taken a two-dimensional fluid element purposefully to simplify the situation, because any rotation will always be having a plane of rotation, and that plane of rotation, let us say this x1 x2 plane. So let us represent the forces. Let us say the center of this element is O. On these four faces, we have shown the relevant normal and the shear components of the forces. The tangential components are also known as the shear components, which you know from basic mechanics. What we are studying here is actually not anything different from what you have learnt in basic mechanics, but here we are learning the grammar of basic mechanics, which is very important. See, when you first start learning how to sing, you don't look into the notation, you just simply spontaneously learn how to sing. But if you want to become a very professional and learned singer or a learned musician, then you have to at the end understand the notations. So without notations you cannot go further forward. So what we are trying to do is trying to bring everything in mechanics that you have learnt in the perspective of momentum conservation, but in a bit of a structured manner. So now we will write the equation of resultant moment of all forces with respect to the axis perpendicular to the plane passing through O is equal to the moment of inertia with respect to the same axis times the angular acceleration, right. This is like equivalent to Newton's second law for rotation. So clearly you can see, when you are talking about moment of forces, the normal components of stresses will not matter because they are all passing through O. Only the shear components will give rise to moments. What kind of moments? So if you take these two shear components, they will form a couple. Therefore the moment is a couple moment. So what is the couple moment of these two? Tau 1 2. What is the force? Tau is not the force. Tau 1 2 times delta x2 times, let us say width of the element perpendicular to the plane of the figure is 1. So this is the force times the length of the couple arm is delta x1. This is a clockwise couple or anti-clockwise? Anti-clockwise couple moment is there, right. So positive. Then what about tau 2 1? This one and this one, they form a clockwise couple moment. So minus tau 2 1 into delta x1 into 1, this is the total force times delta x2. This is the couple moment. So we have represented all the couple moments is equal to moment of inertia. So moment of inertia will be proportional to mass into some length square, right. So by some 12 into the mass let us into the mass. What is the mass? Mass is density times the volume. So in place of delta y it is delta x2, in place of delta x it is delta x1. So delta x1 plus delta x2 square by 12 into rho into delta x1 into delta x2 into 1. This is like m into a square plus b square by 12, something like that. Okay. Whether it is by 12 or by whatever, it does not matter actually for this derivation, because we will see that this term will be 0 at the end. So this into the angular acceleration. Now you take the limit as delta x1 delta x2 tends to 0, because these are tending to 0 and not equal to 0, you can cancel it from both sides, right. This is the first thing. The second thing is that because delta x1 and delta x2 are tending to 0, this term will tend to 0. So from here we are left with one very important thing, that is tau 1 2 is equal to tau 2 1, or tau ij is equal to tau ji in general. Now here, once we have derived this, you can see that out of these 9 components, now you can say that tau 32 and tau 23 are equal, tau 13 and tau 31 are equal, and tau 12 and tau 21 are equal. So how many independent components are there in the stress tensor? 6. So you have 6 independent components in the stress tensor. Okay. So now the Cauchy's theorem this also you can write as tau ij eta j. Now one important thing is that while deriving this equation we have assumed that there is no body couple. That means there is no couple which is acting on the volume of the fluid. That is true in general for almost every fluid, but there are exceptional fluids which can sustain body couples. One such type of fluid which is used in the in research analysis is known as micropolar fluid. Micropolar fluids are certain types of fluids in which you have particles in the fluid which can induce certain rotation in the flows, not just in the flow, but the fluid can sustain body couple. Having a rotation in the flow does not mean that it can sustain body couple, but the particulate medium ensures that the fluid can sustain some body couple. So if the fluid can sustain body couple, then tau ij is not equal to tau ji. But here we are not considering that type of special fluid, but in general fluids cannot sustain body couple, so you will have tau ij equal to tau ji. With this understanding, now let us come back to this equation of motion or conservation of linear momentum that we discussed in the previous lecture. So if you recall that with the assumption of stationary control volume and non-deformable control volume, we arrived at this form of the Reynolds transport theorem. Now what we will do is, we will write the left hand side, the resultant forces. Resultant force is summation of surface force along x plus summation of body force along x. How do you represent the surface force along x? So, you consider an arbitrary surface dA, then the force per unit area on this arbitrary surface is what? So, you can write the surface force why this subscript 1? Because we are interested for component along x. And what is the body force? Let us say you take a small volume and let us say B1 is the body force per unit volume. So, B1 right, B1 is the body force along x1 per unit volume. Now, you can write T1 because Ti is tau ij eta j, so T1 is tau 1 j eta j. Okay. So, this we can write as tau 1 1 I plus tau 1 2 j plus tau 1 3 k dot with eta 1 I plus eta 2 j plus eta 3 k. Right, we have made a vector, artificially made of course, a vector like this which we represent in this way. So, this is, let us give this name tau 1, we can give any name, just let us say that we give a vector, this vector a name tau 1. So, this is tau 1 dot eta. Why we have given it in this way is that in this term you are able to write this as f dot eta dA. So, you can convert it into divergence f dV, so that you can convert it into volume integral. So, if you see right hand side, both the terms are converted into volume integral, left hand side body force is automatically volume integral. So, only the surface force has to be converted into volume integral, and for that divergence theorem has to be used. That is why we have manipulated this in this way, so that it is expressed as a dot product, so that you can use the divergence theorem on this dot product. Okay. So, you can write, so what we will do is we will write the right hand side of this equation in the left hand and left hand side in the right hand. So, that is what is the standard way of writing it in fluid mechanics. So, we will write integral of del del T of rho u So this term is tau 1 dot eta dA, it is divergence of tau 1 dV. That is what we have written here. Okay. So this is as good as writing something dV control volume is equal to 0. Again the choice of the control volume is arbitrary, that means this something must be 0. So you have so see, we have derived a differential equation for fluid motion starting from the integral form. This is written with vector as one of the essential components, but we will use the index notation to write it in an alternative index notation. So to do that, so see, divergence of F, if you write, so what is divergence? Okay. So you can write so in index notation del f j del x j, right. So we will use this term, use this equation and write the index notation version of it. So let us say that we are interested about, before writing this equation, let us say instead of the x component of velocity we are interested about the ith component of velocity, then u will be ui, and in place of tau 1 it will be tau I, instead of b1 it will be bi, right. Instead of the x component, if we are interested about ith component, just replace 1 with I, that's all. If you had the index 1, that was representing x component, if you are interested about the ith component, replace the index 1 with I, that will give you the ith component. So now we are using this definition of divergence. This is alternative index notation of writing the same equation. This equation, I mean either the vector form or the index form, this is known as Navier equation or Cauchy equation. What are the assumptions under which this equation is valid? We will look into this equation very carefully, but first what are the assumptions under which it is valid? See, while deriving this equation, first of all this is equation of what? Conservation of what? Like continuity equation is conservation of mass. This is conservation of what? Again I am giving you 4 options: linear momentum, angular momentum, both linear momentum and angular momentum, none of the above. Both linear momentum and angular momentum, because we started with a linear momentum but we substituted tau ij equal to tau ji within the derivation, that comes from angular momentum. So it looks like a linear momentum conservation, but angular momentum conservation inbuilt within the linear momentum equation. So this we call as normally momentum equation in terms of differential representation of differential calculus based representation of equation of fluid motion. So momentum equation. But what are the assumptions that we have made? So we had made 2 assumptions, 2 major assumptions. One is stationary control volume, another is non-deformable control volume, but both of them can be relaxed. Why both of them can be relaxed? Because if you are considering a non-stationary control volume and if you are considering a non-deformable control volume, both of these can be manifested in terms of an extra body force that can be shown. So eventually stationary and non-deformable control volume also can be relaxed, because that will give rise to additional body force. For example, if you have a accelerating control volume, that may give rise to centrifugal force. So you can put that in the terms of a body force. So pretty general, but one very important assumption: there is no body couple, because if there is any body couple, then tau ij is not equal to tau ji. So the only and the most important assumption that goes behind this equation is that there is no body couple. Other than that, it is pretty general. And why it is so important is because it does not refer to what is the fluid, does not refer to Newtonian fluid, non-Newtonian fluid, whatever. So you can use it for all class of fluids so long as you do not have to consider a body couple. Okay. Now we will see that what are the different terms, meaning here. So to understand that, let us simplify the left hand side of the equation. So what we have done is, we have clubbed this rho uj and ui separately and have used the product rule for differentiation for the second term. Rho and uj together and ui separate. Okay. So now you can write this as what is this? This is continuity. By continuity, this is equal to 0. This is del dot rho v. In index notation, this is divergence of the velocity vector. So this is 0 by continuity. So the left hand side becomes rho So what is there inside? So this is like, if it was x component, it is like del u del t plus u del u del x plus v del u del y plus w del u del z. That thing is written in the index notation. So what is this? This is the total derivative of the velocity or the acceleration along I. Okay. So the left hand side is what? Rho into acceleration along I, right? So the left hand side is rho into acceleration along I, that means mass into acceleration per unit volume, right? So the left hand side is mass into acceleration per unit volume. So what is right hand side? Right hand side is the force per unit volume. This is the surface force per unit volume, this is body force per unit volume. So this is like Newton's second law for fluid. So this is mass into acceleration per unit volume, right hand side is force per unit volume. Okay. Now let us look into the situation that how many equations and how many independent equations and how many unknowns do we have. Do we have sufficient number of equations to solve the velocities? See, in fluid mechanics, one of the primary matters of importance is to solve the velocity, to obtain the velocity field. So how many equations and unknowns do we have? Let us see. Independent equations. How many equations? One is continuity equation. The second is you have this equation for three components. So three momentum equations. So total 4 equations. Unknowns. What are the unknowns? In general, you may have rho as an unknown, density may be an unknown, then u1, u2, u3, then 6 components of tau ij. Body force is usually prescribed, it is known, because you are interested about the motion given a particular body force. So how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 6, 10 unknowns. So you can see that whatever equations we have derived, that is not a closed system of equations, because you have 4 independent equations with 10 unknowns. So you require further simplification, and for further simplification you need to treat the fluid as a special type of fluid. So far we have treated the fluid as a general fluid, so it can be used for any type of fluid, but to make further simplifications we have to consider fluid by fluid separately. So that means when you consider fluid by fluid separately, of course that does mean that maybe some particular type of oil or water or blood, whatever different types of fluids have to be given due consideration for their constitution, and this is what is called as constitutive behavior of the fluid. So that means how does a fluid respond to the given stress, that is unique for different types of fluids, that needs to be recognized. We will come into that, but one final point which I intend to mention here is that it is an illusion that this rho, when it comes out of the derivative, it gives an elusive understanding that as if rho is a constant. This rho has come out of the derivative not because rho is a constant, but because of simplification using the continuity equation. So this rho can still be variable. So rho outside the derivative does not mean that rho is a constant. It has come out of the derivative by virtue of simplification using the continuity equation. Normally this form we use for computational implementation of the problem or for CFD solution, the computational fluid dynamics solution. This is called as conservative form, and this form we commonly use for analytical solution of the problem, and this is called as non-conservative form. Why this is conservative form? Because this form is derived directly from the conservation equation, and this form is a simplification of that using the continuity equation. Okay. So now we will go to the constitutive behavior. That is tau ij will depend on what? In fluid mechanics, stress is related to rate of strain or rate of deformation, right? And rate of deformation, by using your knowledge in fluid kinematics, you know that rate of deformation is related to the gradients of velocity. So tau ij is related to okay. Now you can write but you have to understand one thing very carefully. That if a fluid is at rest, then there is no gradient in velocity, right? Then is there no stress? There is always some stress even when the fluid is at rest. What is the difference between the fluid at rest and fluid at motion? Fluid at motion will be subjected to both shear stress and normal stress, whereas fluid at rest it cannot sustain any shear. It will be subjected to only normal stress, and that is called as hydrostatic stress. So we will divide tau ij into two parts. One is tau ij hydrostatic, and the remaining we call as tau ij deviatoric. Deviatoric component is the component other than the hydrostatic component. Hydrostatic component is the limiting case when the fluid is at rest, so then this deviatoric component is 0. But when the fluid is under motion, you have both hydrostatic and deviatoric component. So tau ij deviatoric is related to del ui del xj. Now you can write this is nothing but A equal to half of A plus B plus half of A minus B. I mean, it is no new equation. Okay. So why we have written this? Because there is a physics that is associated with this equation. What does it represent? This is shear deformation, like del u del y plus del v del x, right? Shear deformation. And what does it represent? Rotation. Okay. So out of shear deformation and rotation, which will give you stress? You have to keep in mind that this is in general shear deformation, but when I equal to j, this gives linear deformation. So linear stroke shear deformation, and this is angular, this is rotation. So out of linear deformation, shear deformation and rotation, which will not give you stress? Rotation will not give you stress. It is like a rigid body type of behavior. So you can say that if you give this a name Eij, then tau ij should be related to this E. This E is, this is also a second order tensor, right? This is called as rate of deformation tensor, because it uses two indices for its specification. Now the question, the big question is, how is tau related to E? How is tau related to E? It depends on what type of fluid you are considering. If you are considering a Newtonian fluid, then tau is linearly related to E. For a Newtonian fluid, the definition is that the tau is linearly related to E. So for a Newtonian fluid, relationship between tau and E must be linear. So what do we mean by a linear relationship? So tau, what is this? Tau is a second order tensor. E is also a second order tensor. So you must find out what is a linear mapping that maps a second order tensor onto a second order tensor, right? For example, when we discussed about the Cauchy's theorem, we had the normal vector and the traction vector. The normal vector was mapped to the traction vector by means of the second order tensor. So a second order tensor maps a vector onto a vector. Similarly, there is something which will map a second order tensor E to the second order tensor tau, and that is a fourth order tensor. So you can write this. So fourth order tensor, this is a fourth order tensor. So a fourth order tensor will require 4 indices for its specification. You can see in the left hand side you have free indices I and j. So in the right hand side also you have free indices I and j, and there is summation over k and summation over L. Now what does it mean? It means that you can write the rate of the stress in terms of the, this is tau ij deviatoric, you must remember. This is not the total tau, this is tau ij deviatoric. the deviatory component of the stress is related to the rate of deformation through the fourth order tensor. That means if you know this tensor, then given the velocity gradients you know what is the stress. But how many components ofCijkl you require? See, each of these Ijkl varies from 1 to 3. So 3 into 3 into 3 into 3. So 81 constants are in general required to describe the property of the fluid. But I mean this will quickly come down not to 81 but to 36 because you have tau ij equal to tau ji. So that will simplify it a little bit, but still when we are describing properties of fluids like water, air, etc., we do not use 36 material properties. We use possibly the most important property, which is the viscosity. So the number of properties as large as this is not used for solving a practical problem. So to solve a practical problem, we can come down to less number of properties necessary, and that requires the consideration of a special type of fluid known as homogeneous and isotropic fluid. So we will discuss about the consequence of what is a homogeneous fluid, what is a isotropic fluid, and how can we writeCijkl for homogeneous, isotropic and Newtonian fluid. That we will take up in the next lecture. Thank you.